Hello, for this mini lesson, by the end of it, the students will be able to identify everything inside the quotation marks as dialogue, and that they will be writing their own quotation marks accurately in their writing. So they're already familiar with sequencing and writing, but they're not really used to dialogue or using quotation marks correctly. And I'm going to bring the children back to the carpet and explain that using dialogue strengthens the personality of the characters inside the stories. I'll ask the children what we have been working on, and they will be saying that they've been working on their writing. And then, what are the various types of punctuations that the students are already familiar with? So this will connect to their background knowledge. We'll be able to create a chart just like this. We'll talk about periods, we'll talk about exclamation points, and question marks. It explains that periods tell a story or a saying. We use exclamation points if we're yelling or showing excitement. And then if we use question marks, we'll be asking a question. This is all review for them. They should already know all about this. So I will explain to the students, what does anyone know what we call it when one character in a story talks aloud to another? When a character talks out loud, we get to know the voice and the personality of the character. It's not the narrator talking, it's the actual character themselves. So I'll offer the students some time to turn and talk about if they know what quotation marks are. They should be familiar with it, they just don't really know how to correctly use them yet. So we are going to use quotation marks. We show dialogue and conversation between characters. We hear our characters out loud. What's an example of dialogue and quotation marks? I'll let the students turn and talk, and they should be able to explain that when we communicate with each other each day, it is dialogue per se because we're having a conversation with somebody with our own voice. So while writing, we can use quotation marks to show dialogue of the characters. In order to do this, we must correctly understand how to punctuate. We can see right here, when you see this mark, you can think of it as the character opening their mouth. It's the beginning of when the character starts to talk. Your voice should change when the character's voice. So you're going to sound like the character. When we see the quotes again, it is the closing of the quotation marks. This can be seen as the character closing their mouth. And here I have the opening quotes, the closing quotes, and the ending punctuation. So now I will explain to the students that we will be reading a story called Nothing at All by Denzi Carzette, and I'm going to ask them, what do you think we'll be looking for throughout the story? And they should be able to explain that we will definitely be looking for quotation marks and dialogue throughout it. I will explain, pay attention to not only the words, but also the marks. The marks show us how to read. It shows the character who is speaking. So let's begin reading. Nothing at all. Cock-a-doodle-doo, good morning to you. So right here we can see the opening quotation marks and the closing quotation marks and how we use exclamation point. We can actually see the character using an air horn to talk. So this can see that this is actually the character talking and not the narrator or the writer. The horse woke up with a grin and a sneeze, pranced about, racing the breeze. "Nay," said the horse, "I slept like a filly." So raise your hand. Do you guys see any dialogue on this page? Of course, we see the opening of the character talking and then the closing of the character talking by looking at the little marks on the page, which is the quotation marks. The cow woke up with a kink in her back, indigestion, a headache, and utter attack. "Moo," said the cow, "I'm in a terrible mood." Out in the meadow, the breeze strolled by, and the scarecrow listened. Can you guess what he said? Nothing at all. The sheep woke shyly. oh so neatly, slipped off their pajamas so discreetly. Bah, said the sheep. Please, no peeking. So we can see in the picture that the sheep is the one talking, and we can tell because of the quotation marks on the page. We can actually see the personality of the animal on the page. The piggies stretched and threw mud on their faces, then spread it around in all the best places. Oink, oink, said the piggies. Always bathe before eating. Out in the meadow, the breeze strolled by, and the scarecrow listened. Can you guess what he said? What do we think that scarecrow is going to say? Nothing at all. So let's see. The scarecrow is not saying anything at all. So do we see any quotation marks here? No. Do we need quotation marks here? We don't, because the scarecrow is not talking. We only use the quotation marks to show when a character is actually speaking. 10 little chicks scratched and dug, then politely shared a banana slug. Cluck, cluck, said Mama. See how deliciously good manners can be? The dog tired, heard the chickens cheep, sighed, rolled over, and went back to sleep. Woof, said the dog, too early. Out in the meadow, the breeze strolled by, and the scarecrow listened. Can you guess what he said? So, what do we think the scarecrow is going to say? Let's see. Nothing at all. And there's no quotation marks, no punctuation here besides the period at the end of the sentence. In the meadow, the cat was stalking, walking, waiting, softly talking. Meow, said the cat. I see my breakfast. And you can hear in my voice how I'm changing based on when the character is talking and when I see the opening and closing quotation marks. The mouse grew nervous when she saw the cat, then ran off quickly. No time for a chat. Squeak, cried the mouse. Where will I hide? Out in the meadow, the breeze strolled by, and the scarecrow listened. Can you guess what he said? What do we think? There's a mouse in my pants. So the scarecrow finally said something. He's freaking out because there's a mouse inside of his pants. We can see by the capitalization and the opening and closing of the quotes that we were supposed to read this with excitement and that the scarecrow is really freaking out here. So I'm going to stop here, and now that we have paid attention to not only the words but also the marks, and we have read the story showing how the characters are speaking throughout it, we're going to be able to try this ourselves. So each group, it's going to be groups of 2, and they will be able to get one piece of construction paper, and they'll be able to go to a location in the classroom, and they can actually write out dialogue for themselves. They will talk about whatever they would like to. The teacher can give them some ideas if they really don't know what to write about. So for this one, I explain what they're going to be eating for dinner with a friend. So, what are you going to eat for dinner? I think pizza, but I want tacos. Tacos would be great, but what about dessert? Cookies, for sure. And they will have to circle the beginning of when the character starts to talk, and the punctuation, and then the ending of when the character begins to talk. And they will continue to do this so that way they can get the idea that this is how you accurately write quotation marks. If I'm saying something, I'm the character that I'm writing. I'm going to open the mouth of the character, say what I have to say, close quotes, and then identify the punctuation. So this will be a fun activity. The students can write about whatever they wish to write about and spend some time really using the punctuation correctly. So now this is when I will send the students on their own. They will be able to continue editing their story, and I want the students to use quotation marks with at least one character within their story. By doing this, they'll be able to show the character's personality more. The emotions will be easier to read, and they'll be able to show their actions as well. I think quotation marks and learning dialogue, it can be really fun, and it really improves writing. So if they're writing narratives, it's a great time to really better their writing by showing them a book like this, where they can obviously see when the characters are talking, and by seeing that the Scarecrow doesn't talk, he says nothing at all, we can just see that when you use the quotation marks, that's when we'll be able to really open the mouth of the characters that we've created and really get to know them. Alrighty, thank you.